Okay, so like, who hasn't been kind of freaked out grabbing a burger lately?
Yeah.
Seriously, it feels like every week, bam, another food recall.
Right.
Remember that whole E. coli thing with the McDonald's quarter pounders?
Oh, yeah.
And a bunch of you actually asked us to like deep dive into this whole food recall thing. Like, is this the new normal or what?
Right.
So we're digging into this article from Webdesk from October 25th this year
Okay.
to see if we can figure this out.
Sounds good. So one thing that's interesting is like this article saying it's not just burgers.
Really?
Yeah, it's waffles, eggs, deli meat. They even had green onions on there.
Green onions?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy.
It's like bacterial bingo or something.
Totally.
So if it's not burgers, then it's the usual suspects, right?
Yeah. E. coli, Listeria, Salmonella.
Yep.
I feel like I learned about this stuff back in elementary school. Haven't we figured this out yet?
Well, that's where it gets kind of interesting.
Okay.
Like, you actually have E. coli living in your gut right now.
Yeah. It's part of a healthy gut. It's specific strains of these bacteria that are the problem.
Yeah.
Think of it like dog breeds, you know?
Yeah.
Some are friendly lap dogs, some are a little more, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
not so much.
Gotcha. So different strains, different levels of watch out.
Exactly.
But either way, we're not just talking about an upset stomach here, right?
No, unfortunately not for most people. It might be a few days of feeling yucky, but for people who are more vulnerable, like pregnant women, kids, older folks, or anyone with a weaker immune system, it can be really dangerous, even deadly.
Yeah, the article even mentioned that Listeria outbreak from Boar's Head deli meats.
Right.
10 deaths. That's just awful.
It is. It just really shows how serious this is. And Listeria is especially tricky.
Oh, why is that?
Well, E. coli and Salmonella, they usually cause, you know, the classic symptoms.
Yeah, throwing up diarrhea, that whole thing.
Exactly. But Listeria can be sneaky.
Uh-oh.
It can even lead to meningitis, which is a serious infection of the brain and spinal cord.
Wow, so not your average stomach bug.
Nope.
This kind of brings me back to that big question. Are food recalls just the reality now? Or is this like a new trend?
Well, if we look at the bigger picture, our food system has gotten so complicated.
Okay.
More food coming from other countries, more processing steps involved.
Right.
Every step is another chance for a contamination.
So more chances for something to go wrong, basically. Makes sense. More ingredients, more people handling the food, more chances for those bad strains to sneak in.
And it's also worth pointing out that processed foods tend to be a bigger source of these things.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they're a bigger part of the problem.
So is sticking to whole unprocessed foods a good first step then?
It's definitely a step in the right direction.
Okay, good to know. And the good news is it's not all doom and gloom.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Government agencies are actually getting better at finding these outbreaks.
They are.
They're using faster, more sensitive tests, so they're catching more bad food than before. So maybe it's not that there are more outbreaks, just that we're finding them more often.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of reassuring, isn't it?
It is. And that faster detection leads to quicker recalls,
Right.
which can actually save lives.
That makes sense.
The article also mentioned that the FDA is pushing for this thing called digital tracing.
Digital tracing?
Yeah, it's like CSI for food.
What?
Imagine tracking a bad ingredient back to its source in like hours instead of days or weeks.
Oh, wow. That would be incredible.
Right.
So faster detection, better technology, but what about holding people accountable? It seems like there aren't any real consequences for the companies responsible for these outbreaks.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're right to bring that up.
Yeah.
Companies often get fined.
Yeah.
But those fines are usually nothing for these huge corporations.
Makes sense.
But the article did mention that Boar's Head is facing lawsuits from that Listeria outbreak.
Oh, right.
And the USDA, the ones who inspect these facilities, are under investigation for their role.
Really? So maybe some real consequences this time.
Maybe.
It would be a step towards greater accountability for sure. But it seems like we can't just sit back and wait for someone else to fix this.
Right.
We need to be proactive too, don't we?
I do. Absolutely. We can't just like rely on the system to always catch everything.
Right.
Like wearing a seatbelt, you know?
Yeah.
It's there to protect you, but you wouldn't just drive like crazy just because you have it on.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So what does being proactive even look like in real life?
Right.
I'm already like scrubbing my produce, washing my hands a million times before I eat. What else can we do?
I mean, you're on the right track for sure. But this article had something that really stuck with me.
Okay.
There's this quote from Darren Detweiler, a food policy expert, and he basically says,
Yeah.
we need to assume that food is always contaminated.
Whoa. Okay. That's a little intense. I get being cautious, but assuming everything is contaminated.
Think of it like a mindset shift.
Okay.
It's not about living in fear. It's about knowing the risks are there and taking steps to be safe. Right.
We can't just rely on companies or the government to keep our food safe.
Okay.
We have to take responsibility too.
So informed awareness over blind trust, I get it, but what does that actually look like day to day?
Well, the article doesn't get into specifics about kitchen stuff, but it talks about how these bacteria spread, which gives us clues.
Okay.
Take E. coli, for example. It's often found in ground beef.
So always cook burgers well done.
Exactly. Make sure that ground meat reaches 160 degrees Fahrenheit to kill any bacteria that might be there.
Got it.
And be careful about cross-contamination.
Yeah.
Using separate cutting boards for raw meat and produce and washing your hands really well after handling raw meat can make a huge difference.
Good reminders. What about Listeria and Salmonella? Any tips for those?
Listeria loves the cold, so keep that fridge below 40 degrees and don't mess around with those use-by dates.
Right.
Salmonella is often found in poultry and eggs, so again, cooking them properly is key.
Gotcha.
Chicken needs to reach 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, cook thoroughly, avoid cross-contamination, keep things clean. Sounds like a solid plan.
Right.
But this assume everything is contaminated thing, isn't that a little extreme?
It's more about understanding that contamination can happen anywhere from the farm to the factory to our own kitchens.
Yeah.
By knowing the risks, we can try to minimize them.
Okay.
Remember those outbreaks we talked about?
Uh-huh.
They often started with small oversights.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I see how that mindset shift can be helpful.
Right.
But besides the basics, are there other things we can do to be more proactive? I mean, I'm not going to go inspect food processing plants myself.
Well, you'd be surprised. Remember, we talked about digital tracing.
Yeah.
We can actually support companies that are using those technologies.
Oh.
Look for labels or websites that mention things like blockchain technology or other traceability stuff.
Oh, so like voting with our wallets for companies that care about safety.
Exactly.
What about like researching brands or suppliers with good safety records? Is that a thing?
It is. There are websites that track that kind of stuff.
Really?
Yeah. Food safety record certifications, even outbreaks linked to specific companies.
Wow.
A little research can go a long way.
That's true. And speaking of being proactive,
Yeah.
remember those lawsuits against Boar's Head?
Yeah.
That shows the power of collective action, right?
Exactly.
We're not just passive consumers. We can hold companies accountable by choosing where we shop, and even by supporting groups that fight for stronger food safety rules.
Absolutely. Don't underestimate your influence as a consumer and a citizen.
Right.
We can all do our part to make the food system safer.
You know, this whole deep dive made me think.
Yeah.
This article focuses on those big outbreaks that make the news.
Right.
But what about everyday food safety at home?
Oh, that's a good point.
We're not dealing with contaminated factories.
Right.
But we are handling raw ingredients and cooking every day.
You're right. Those everyday actions, the little things we do in our kitchens,
Yeah.
they can either make us more or less likely to get sick.
Right, we're juggling ingredients, rushing, maybe not always being perfect with hand washing or temperature checks.
Exactly. And those little oversights can have consequences.
True. It's like that quote we talked about, vigilance is key.
Mm-hmm.
And that vigilance starts at home.
It does.
So this is a good reminder for everyone, myself included, to brush up on those kitchen hygiene and food safety basics.
For sure. Maybe we should even do a deep dive into home food safety sometime.
Ooh, I like where this is going. We could explore proper food storage.
The truth about those sell-by dates. Bust some common food safety myths.
Yeah.
Maybe even venture into those neglected kitchen danger zones.
Sponges, cutting boards, refrigerator handles.
Right. Those are like bacteria playgrounds if we're not careful.
They are.
It's funny, we focus on washing our hands and scrubbing produce.
Yeah.
But we forget about all those other surfaces that touch our food.
It's all connected. And understanding those connections can help us make our kitchens safer and healthier.
Okay, you've convinced me. Home food safety deep dive, it's on the list.
But for now, maybe we can get back to the article and talk about something else. It mentions allergens.
Ah, yes, allergens. Those were actually the biggest reason for recalls last year, according to the article.
Really?
Yeah, it seems like food allergies are on the rise.
It does feel like everyone's allergic to something these days.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that?
Well, the increase in food allergies is complicated. There are lots of factors involved.
Okay.
But for food safety, it just highlights how important it is for everyone to be careful.
So we need to read labels. And know our own allergies and sensitivities.
Exactly. Don't assume something is safe just because of how it looks or even its name.
Right.
Ingredients can change, and how things are made can introduce unexpected allergens.
So always read the label, even if you think you know what's in it. Good advice.
Right.
This whole deep dive has really been eye-opening.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget about food safety when you haven't gotten sick from an outbreak yourself.
Right.
But as we've talked about, foodborne illness is a big deal, and it's not just about individual health.
You're right. It affects the economy, too.
Really?
Yeah. Lost productivity from people being sick, increased healthcare costs.
Wow.
It's a big problem with far-reaching consequences.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here, from scary headlines to things we can all do to be safe.
Right.
What's the main takeaway?
Yeah, what do we want people to remember?
Yeah.
I think it comes down to this. We all need to be more careful about food safety, both at home and when we're buying food at the store.
Right.
Read labels carefully, cook food, thoroughly prevent cross-contamination, be aware of the risks.
And if something seems off about a food, trust your gut.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah. Better safe than sorry.
Exactly. At the end of the day, we're all in this together.
True.
A safer food system is good for everyone.
It really does feel like the more we know, the better we can protect ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this article really lays it all out there.
It does. And we've talked about things we can do like researching brands and supporting companies that have good safety records.
Right.
Even pushing for stronger regulations.
Uh-huh.
But it all starts with just being aware, right?
Yeah.
Like we can't make good choices if we're not paying attention.
Exactly. We have to be informed consumers, read those labels carefully, understand those use-by dates.
Yeah.
Be mindful of cross-contamination in the kitchen.
It's like brushing our teeth. We don't wait till we have a toothache to start taking care of them, right?
Right.
We do it every day to prevent problems later on.
Exactly. Food safety should be like that, too. A preventive mindset.
I like that.
Those little everyday things can really make a difference for you and your family. And the good news is there's a ton of information out there to help us do it right.
You're right. There are websites, apps, whole online communities dedicated to food safety tips.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll be doing our part with that deep dive into home food safety you mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to that one.
Me too. We'll share all the best tips and tricks for making your kitchen safer and healthier.
Sounds good.
Well, folks, that's about it for our food recall deep dive. We've covered a lot today.
We have.
From figuring out what causes these outbreaks to what we can do to stay safe.
Hopefully you're leaving here feeling more informed and ready to take action.
Right, not overwhelmed.
Yeah, exactly. Remember, knowledge is power.
Sure.
And even small steps can make a big difference when it comes to food safety.
Absolutely. So stay vigilant out there.
Yeah.
Wash your hands, cook your food thoroughly, and always read those labels.
Always.
And if you have any questions or want to learn more about anything we talked about today, don't hesitate to reach out.
We're here to help.
Until next time, stay safe and eat well, everyone.
See ya!